Where is my button? Oh, wow.
I know.
Okay.
Medium.
And we're recording.
Medium. Kevin's probably like dead air, dead air. You know, Kevin's dying.
It's not time yet.
Oh, okay. I was like,
That's why.
instead of 6 I was like, oh my God.
That clock is
Hey,
purposely
what's going
fast.
on? YouTube, we got YouTube, we got IG, we going down,
All right,
Facebook.
guys.
Yeah, never count on that clock.
Never count on that.
That's not good. That's the one I'm looking at. You guys should have it at the right
so maybe
time.
I came in too soon. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome viewers to our Zoom room.
Hold on.
Nice to have you tonight.
Welcome to the Poetry of Justice show with JackieRay Phillips on YikesRadio.com and AccelerateRadio.net. Now here on the Poetry of Justice show, this is where social consciousness meets the arts. And what we do is we select topics that spark the interest and awareness of social diversity ranging from arts, entertainment, and social justice at large, leaving our listeners thinking and saying,
YikesRadio.com.
Now those are the sultry sounds of my mentor, the Mr. Kevin Nash. And I always love to give honor and respect to Mr. Kevin Nash because he is the owner of this proprietorship at Accelerated Radio. And if it were not for Kevin and his dreams, it would be almost impossible for me to do what I so love to do here on the Poetry of Justice show. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the show the benefactor, Miss Lori Ray Fisher of Ginger Productions and Entertainment Company. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing great.
All right. Amen. Thank you so much, Lori G. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm also going to give a very special shout out to our other sponsorship. That is G Babies Catering. GBABBIES Catering. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to check out Chef Mac. You can find him on Instagram. Again, Chef Mac with G Babies Catering. My nephew, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to take him out. Mr. Mac Rosales. I want you to do that for me, ladies and gentlemen. And then I got to give a very special shout out to the man of steel, Mr. WMPJ Steelworks, ladies and gentlemen. And you know, I always love to talk about that new project that he's got going on there, ladies and gentlemen, with APS Muscle Cars, ladies and gentlemen. This is a brand new facility in Signal Hill, California. And so if you got your motorcycles, your Harleys, your race cars, your boats, whatever you got, guys, I want you to check this guy out. He also does vehicle restoration. He builds cars. He is a hot rod guru, ladies and gentlemen. Memo, MEMO with APS Muscle Cars, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to go ahead and check him out, everybody. And man, we got a good, exciting show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm welcoming a very special gentleman to the show, Mr. Jaime Puerta, ladies and gentlemen. And he's going to be here tonight telling us an amazing story on so many levels, on so many facets. And I thank everybody for being here tonight. And let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Puerta, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Jaime. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight on the Poetry of Justice show. I really do appreciate you being here. You're a very special dear friend of mine and to the show at this point. And I welcome you and I thank you for your time tonight. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me on your show tonight. I'm excited.
So I am too. Well, before we go full throttle with this, I would really love to introduce some of the panel members to you, Jaime. And those individuals are, we've got a good show for you tonight. I brought in some of my dearest friends. I have Miss Shelley C. of the chat, Jaime.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. A pleasure.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
Jaime, the thing about Shelley is she has some information that she's going to be sharing with us tonight for the very first time as well with regard to fentanyl and how it has impacted her and her family. I've known Shelley Jaime for about 35 years. We've raised our children together, and she's an amazing lady. And I know you're going to have a treat with her. And then, of course, this is my lovely sister that you finally get to meet in the flesh, Jaime. This is my sister Lori G, and she's my backbone, and she's going to be with us tonight. So we're in great company. And then, of course, I have our amazing engineer with Accelerated Radio and Yikes Radio in the house, Rashid. And Rashid always has an amazing piece of information that he picks for us. And anything that you want us to do, Jaime, if you want us to pull some articles from the net or play anything you need at all, we are here to make sure that this is an exciting experience here on the Poetry of Justice show. And then I have our New York affiliate, which you had a chance to talk to on our pre-show interview, Mr. Gerald Tapper, in the house tonight. He's away from his screen right now, but he's also here to speak with us regarding the subject matter at hand. So without further ado, Jaime, I'm going to give this time to you. Introduce yourself, because no one can do that better than yourself. And I'm going to let you do what you do. And we're just going to banter and go back and forth. I have, just so you know, for my interview the other night, I do have 2 full pages of notes, sir. So the entire time you were speaking, I was working and I was jotting down almost verbatim what you spoke about. So I have a series of information and questions that I could do, but I want to give it to you. So Jaime Puerta, ladies and gentlemen, Poetry of Justice Show, Fentanyl, October 24th, 2020. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for this invitation to your show. I think this is my second podcast that I've ever done. I'm not nervous at all, which is kind of unusual for me, because I don't like the attention that much, but I just want to really give you a shout out and giving me this platform of trying to get my message out to the public. My name is Jaime Puerta. I live in Santa Clarita, California. I am Colombian American. I'm the father of Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson. He was 16 years old, and my son passed away on April the 6th, 2020, due to fentanyl poisoning. So where do we start? We can start, I guess, like all kids, probably started out with marijuana, and that opened up some other doors where he wanted to experiment with other drugs like Xanax or oxycodone and things like that. And we helped him, and we helped him out quite a bit. Both him and his mother, Denise Johnson. And he's just a great kid. He just got involved in with the wrong crowd, and he started abusing drugs. So we were forced to send him to outpatient, well, not an outpatient, to wilderness therapy in Kanab, Utah, a place called Wingate. And what it is, it's 2 months of wilderness therapy, where they basically, what they do is they take away all cell phone communications, all electronics, everything, give you the clothes, a backpack, here's a sleeping bag, here are the ingredients to your food. And they teach them how to light their own fires, rubbing the twigs together, starting their own fires and becoming self-sufficient. And though those 2 months, I don't know if those 2 months were harder for him or harder for myself, because I missed him dearly. But when he left that place, he was a completely different kid. My son and I, we had a great relationship, but when he turned 13, 14 years old, there's something that went off in his head. As he was going through puberty, just things became a little bit more difficult with them. And at that time, we really didn't know that he was probably suffering from depression at that time. And what he was doing was he was self-medicating to take care of that depression, right? But being the strong boy that he was, we could really never get him to, we couldn't get the diagnoses at that time, because before he had gone to Wingate, because of the self-medicating So a psychiatrist could not properly diagnose him with either depression or ADHD or ADD just because he was using drugs at that time. But when he left Kanab, Utah, it was just a totally different kid. He was on the right path. He was great. I had myself and his mom we took him out of his high school where he was at Saugus High School, and he went to a charter school called Opportunities for Learning. He was like a year and 12 months behind in high school work, and the kid caught up. He just did an insane amount of work, and he caught up, and he was learning how to code. And sometime in the evening of April 2nd, we had dinner together. Him and I, by the way, I mean, we had repaired our relationship to something that any father would dream of. We just had the best relationship in the world. We thought, both his mother and I and my wife, we had thought that all of the bad stuff we had put behind us, and we were just ecstatic and just so proud of him and how well he was doing. He was because he had stopped using drugs, or the Xanax and the oxycodone. We were finally able to get a diagnosis of severe depression and ADHD, and they put him on a course of medication, and that medication helped him out quite a lot. So much so that he was able to concentrate on his schoolwork again and everything like that. Then COVID-19 hit, and being that my wife has some health issues, we decided to just stay in home. I didn't want to go out and maybe bring something home and get her sick. And I asked my son to do the same. So we were all just being in the house, and he decided he wanted to go out and walk the dog, and he walked our precious dog Birdie. He came back. We had wonderful dinner. He gave me a big hug. He gave me a kiss on the cheek, which he normally wouldn't do. And he actually told me that night, he goes, "Dad, I'm so sorry for everything that I put you through." And I go, you're a kid. You're going to have these things. Nobody's expecting, you to be perfect, and you're learning, and I'm proud of you, and I love you, and just thank you for being such a great son, And when I walked in his bedroom on that Thursday morning,
Take your time.
Sorry.
Take your time. No.
It's me.
Take your time.
I found my son laying in his bed, and I knew he had passed. There was just, I knew he had gone. And so I called 911, and EMTs in the fire department here from Santa Clarita, Saugus, they were fantastic. They got here in like 3 minutes, and they started CPR, and they applied Narcan to him, back to life, and nothing was really working. And they got him to Henry Mayo Hospital, and they did a fantastic job as well. And the doctor there told us that it didn't look good at all, and he was going to he was going to contact a team from Los Angeles Children's Hospital, a team came up, a respiratory physician and another doctor, very specialized. They picked them up, and they took them down to Los Angeles Children's Hospital, and myself and Daniel's mom, Denise, we drove down there. And that evening they came in, a team of doctors, and just basically told us that that they were very sorry, but there was nothing that they could really do. That at that moment, they were able to bring him back to life, if you can call it that. But it was just like the machines that were keeping him alive. So it was devastating,
I can't even imagine, Lori G.
I'm so sorry, Jaime, to hear
Our
that story.
sympathies are with you, Jaime. Our
Thank you.
condolences.
He's my only son,
Yeah.
16 years old, He passed away on April the 6th. On April the 5th of that evening, both myself and Denise, we stayed every night between that Thursday evening and Monday. We stayed with him at the hospital, and just we were saying our goodbyes, but we also knew that we were saying our goodbyes, but we understood too that that was no quality of life for him. It was just a shell of the person. It's his body, but we felt that his spirit had already gone, or his soul, if you will. And that's that Sunday night of the 5th, Denise and I, we came to the decision that we needed to let him go. So when the doctors came into his room the next day, we told them that because they did not force us, and they didn't tell us, well, hey, we got to disconnect them. They said, we can keep them on here as long as you want. We'll leave that decision up to you. I have nothing but praise for Los Angeles Children's Hospital and their team there. I was just amazed. They were so compassionate and so loving. What we did, so we could, I just didn't, myself and Denise, we didn't want the doctors or the nurses just to see another kid in there who was passing away. So I printed out a bunch of his pictures, and we glued them, or we taped them, should I say, to the walls and to the door. So anytime somebody came in, they would see his picture to see what he was like in real life. And so, on that Monday, they disconnected the machines at 3:45 in the afternoon. At 5:08 that afternoon, he passed away. His mom was in bed with him, and she hugged him and kissed him, and we all said our goodbyes. And that was that. And then we took the pictures off of the walls, and I left Denise for a while in there with him. And sorry.
No, I'm so sorry, Jaime.
And I went in, and I spent some time with his body and just caressed his forehead like I always did. And every night when I said goodnight, I always gave him a kiss right here on the bridge of his nose. And I gave him his last kiss, and I left.
My God, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yes.
Lori, where are you right now? I'm sorry. I know everybody. Shelly C., where are you right now?
I just want to thank Jaime for sharing that, because what incredible bravery. And it's been since April. And to share that, I feel like it's a privilege. There are so many people that suffer with this in their family and don't say. I can say in my personal family, we never speak of it. But Jaime, I want to say what incredible bravery and what a wonderful father to share such a wonderful story. And it hasn't even been a year. And I already feel like what a privilege that you shared that special kiss that you give between the eyes, and that feeling. We always feel as parents that we want to. We're supposed to live past our children and to be able to say goodbye. What a incredible thing and bravery that you showed in sharing this and kissing your son goodbye. I think that's wonderful. It touches my heart.
Thank you, Leslie.
And thank you for bringing it and sharing it, because there's so many families that suffer through this, and we don't share it. Sometimes it's a hidden fear, or I should say hidden pain, that we don't share. And I can say within my own family, it's something that I've never shared. But incredible bravery, and what a wonderful father. What a wonderful tribute. And I commend you.
Thank you.
You've done a lot of work, Jaime. You've been on a lot of different. You're a crusader now, for lack of a better words. You're not messing around. I think there's this one thing called the NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition. Just to let you know, Jaime, when we got off the line the other night, when we were on with Big Tap and with Gerald and Lori, one of the biggest things that Gerald, when we got off the line, Gerald goes, "Oh man, this is going to be a powerful show." He goes, "This guy is no joke." He goes, "This guy is no joke." And then when I told him a little bit about, you being a Marine and all, and he's like, "Oh no." I'm like, "No, this guy is not messing around." So we know you're going to take this all the way to the top. What you got going on next week? I think Ohio is on the docket or not.
Yes, there's been a progression of events that have happened since my son passed away, and Ohio by no way, shape, or form is the culmination of our advocacy. But if I may, if I can begin to tell you how this advocacy started, to give you a background of how this happened, it would be my privilege. So, how do you explain that a perfectly healthy 16-year-old boy's pulmonary system just crashes? How do you explain that? So and how do you explain that when you know that your son wasn't suffering at that time of substance abuse disorder? Do you know what I mean? So the questions just started roiling in my head. The first 2 weeks after my son passed away, being a Marine and all, but it was really hard to function. But I knew I had to stay strong, first for my wife, and I have a company that I have to run, and that has to continue moving along. So I knew that I had to continue functioning, but the question kept begging in the back of my head, there's something wrong. There's something wrong here. This is something wrong here. And I just had that gut feeling that there was something way off, and I didn't like what I was feeling, because I just had too many questions that had to be answered, right? I cannot get in too much detail about any kind of investigation that is going on right now. What I can tell you is that I had found what my son had taken that night, or sometime after 11 o'clock at night that I said goodnight to him. He had taken half of what looked like an oxycodone 30 milligram pill.
Half of the 30, or was the 30 the half dose, Jaime? Forgive me for the inter.
He cut the pill in half, and he had left the pill on top of his dresser. I found it, and I took that pill to the hospital, thinking that maybe if when you're a father, you try to do anything that you can to save your son. And I was thinking that maybe if they knew what he had ingested, maybe there was some kind of treatment that could bring him back miraculously somehow. That was what was going through my mind. So that's why I took the half the pill to the hospital. But the doctors again reiterated to me, after all the analysis that they had done, after all the blood work, after all the EKGs, the MRIs, every single test that you can imagine done on my son, on my boy, they told me that there was just absolutely nothing that they could do. But what they did do is they put that half a pill in a plastic baggie, and they had given it. They had called the authorities, and the authorities from Santa Clarita went and picked up half that pill. After 2 weeks after my son had passed away, there was a lot of his friends that were coming over. A lot of his friends. I mean, they came over, brought flowers. I had groups of kids in here. They were crying with me. They were shocked, just like the whole community was. My son was one of those kids that I think I had mentioned it to you guys in the pre-interview, is that he had more friends that were girls than friends that were boys. He was their shoulder to cry on. They went to him for advice. He was the guy. My son was a warrior as far as, he would see these commercials on TV about the dog pounds or puppies, and he would cry. I mean, he was a sensitive soul. I'm pretty sensitive though too. I wear my feelings on my sleeves. But he was like that as well. But, so these 2 weeks go on, had lots of visitors, lots of people coming by. I still had these questions on the back of my mind that were really truly just bugging me a lot. And I got in contact with the investigating authorities, and what they told me is that they had done an analysis on what Daniel had taken, and it turned out to be enough fentanyl to kill 5 grown men.
My God.
Wow, my goodness.
So
But that was half a pill.
and that was half a pill. Yeah, it was half a pill. Because I figured, I go, how is it that half a pill of oxycodone can kill somebody? Unless you have like I'm not a doctor. I don't know. It just bugged me, and it bugged me bad. I go, there's something wrong here. And when they told me it was fentanyl, well, that's where my personal journey started with what I'm doing now. First thing I did after they told me that, the first thing that came to mind was, well, that is not, if my son had passed away due to a counterfeit oxycodone 30 milligram pill that looked exactly the same as an oxycodone pill would look like, which is light blue, M on one side, 30 on the other, then my son did not in any way, shape, or form suffer from an overdose. My son was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where we get drug-induced homicide?
Yes, I'll get to that in a minute. And that's my first thought, that is because my son was murdered.
Yes.
Somebody sold my son, or gave my son, a false bill of goods. And the way, the best analogy that I can come up with this, and a dear friend explained this to me. If you remember 1982, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 58, so I'm giving away my age. But
Behind you, I'm right behind you.
all right, cool.
I'm even closer behind you, Jaime.
Yeah,
I'm like right there knocking on the door.
50 plus, we rolling.
Okay.
Right.
1982, there was 7 people passed away in the city of Chicago when they had ingested Tylenol. And there was a national outcry and a national, everybody freaked out, and they started just taking Tylenol off of all of the shelves. And how is it that somebody who takes Tylenol ends up passing away? Well, they came to find out that the Tylenol had been tainted with cyanide. So people go into a pharmacy, they buy an over-the-counter medicine, they're buying Tylenol to take care of a headache, a sore muscle, or whatever, and they end up dead. My son, for whatever reason, decides that he wants to take half an oxycodone pill. I'm thinking probably because he was bored out of his gourd, whatever the reason might be. He didn't even take the full thing. He only took half of it, and it killed him. And when they told me what took him, then I knew immediately that my son was murdered, immediately. So I went online. I punched in fentanyl on my Google search bar. The first thing that had come up was an article from Homeland Security, how they had caught a truck down in the San Ysidro border with enough fentanyl to kill every single American in the United States. And it was all in pill form. And I was just like, what is going on? What do you mean enough fentanyl? Well, how much fentanyl do you need to kill somebody? You know, then I came to find out that 5 micrograms of fentanyl, if I'm not mistaken, it's more or less about 10 grains of salt. That's enough to kill you. And if you talk about carfentanil, which is another thing, the same amount would kill an elephant. So it's really, really serious stuff. Then I came across an article from Temecula, California, with a gentleman whose name is Matt Capilotto, whose daughter Alexandra had passed away on December the 20th. Well, they found her on December 23rd, and he had come to find out that she had passed away due to fentanyl poisoning, as well as along with another 4 I would say children. It was, I believe it was 2 16-year-olds, a 17-year-old, and then Alexandra, all 5 in the month of December in the city of Temecula alone. So I called up Matt Capilotto. I reached out to him. I got his email, and he said, hey, let's meet. So I drove down to Temecula, and that's when I was first introduced to an organization called Drug-Induced Homicide.org, which was started by a woman in the city of Chicago, retired police officer, whose name is Terry Almanza, whose daughter had passed away. I believe it was a different reason, but it was the same thing as drug-induced homicide. So what happens is, in our society, there's a giant stigma for people who use drugs or who suffer from substance use disorder. And what happens is when people die from fentanyl, our authorities, in most cases, okay, they just call it a drug overdose and no investigation is done. But again, I believe, and many others who are with me believe, that it cannot be an overdose. How can it be an overdose? My son was murdered, plain and simple. And somebody has to pay for that. Justice has to be done in that sense, right? I was talking to Matt about it, and so I started looking into this drug-induced homicide thing, and I go, well, what are we going to get out of it? What are we going to get out of drug-induced homicide? What exactly would that do? And how it's not going to bring my son back.
No, it's not.
It's not going to bring Matt's daughter back, or Michael Gray's daughter back, or Eddie Kobilis, or Ed Turnan, or Amy Neville. I mean, I just met so many people. As I dug more, I found all these people were in the same boat. And basically what happens is that in the state of California, there are no drug-induced homicide laws in place. And for you to, if you were to even to catch the person who furnished my son with this poison, to get a conviction, I mean, it would be very difficult to do so, because to prove murder in the first degree, you have to prove expressed malice. To prove murder in the second degree, you have to prove implied malice. So a lot of people, and then along with that, you have here in the state of California, particularly, you have 3 laws in place, which is AB 109, Proposition 47, and Proposition 57, that is basically letting go or not being able to prosecute a lot of these people who are doing this, which is one of the reasons why this just continues to go on and on and on and on, and nothing seems to be done about it. Now, on the state level, you know, we would love to get drug-induced homicide laws put in place, because it's not just for my son, but we need, see, the thing is, if I can just backtrack a little bit, in today's society, especially with our children, it's not like back in the late 70s or 80s when I was experimenting, when I was smoking marijuana, or if I was drinking, or if I decided to do cocaine, I knew I wasn't going to die. But this generation of children, they've basically have been brought up on medication. I mean, if you look at You know, oh, your kid's not concentrating. Well, then let's get him on Adderall. Oh, your kid's acting out. You know, he needs Ritalin or Xanax. So it's this culture of children who are into the pills. You know, they're not, you know, they'll go from marijuana and they'll, in most cases, or in some cases, they'll go straight to the pills. So what's the crux of the problem with the pill supplies that we have here in the United States is the Chinese manufacture fentanyl. They're selling it to the Mexican cartels. The Mexican cartels understand that there's a huge opioid crisis in the United States. Back in the 90s, you had pain management doctors and these pill mills, which would liberally just, you know, prescribe oxycodone, Oxycontin, Vicodin. You would have a month, 2 months, 3 months supply of oxycodone, and people all of a sudden found themselves addicted to it, where one pill now wasn't taking away the pain. Now they had to take 2 pills. 2 pills wasn't taking the pain away. Now they had to take 3, 5, 10, 15, 20. I've met girls. I just met a young lady who was taking 20 Percocet a day. Just unbelievable to me.
That's
So
insane.
it's insane. So we have this generation of children who are into these pills. And then on top of that, in the past, you had these doctors like Purdue who just got a judgment against them, I guess $8.5 billion. And I don't think anybody's going to jail, which I actually think is a travesty of justice. And I'll get into that later with Big Pharma. But the DEA came down on all these pain management doctors and these pill mills, stopped it, told them the max you can give out is maybe 1 week's worth. A lot of people were already hooked on the oxycodones. A lot of them who were so badly, you know, addicted to it turned to either heroin, or they go onto these social media platforms like Snapchat, and they'll go on there and they'll buy a pill of either Percocet or oxycodone or Oxycontin or a Vicodin, and they'll deliver it to their door, and 30 to 40%, if not more, of these counterfeit opioids that are coming up in the southern border are deadly. And when somebody ingests that, they die. And that's exactly what's going on right now. I mean, we have an epidemic of these counterfeit opioid pills coming up in the southern border. There are millions upon millions of them in circulation in the United States. Somebody takes it, they die, the authorities call it an overdose, and they just wash their hands and say, that's it. But what they're not taking into account is, what about that kid who wasn't a drug addict? What about that kid who went to a party for the first time, 13, 14 years old? Someone gives them a Xanax bar, right? Takes it and dies. The one pill, one kill kid. Who is going to get justice for them? Who is looking out for that? I'm telling you right now, like I told some friends last night that I got together with, they've been dying to see me and my wife since COVID-19. We haven't been able to get together, and we finally got together last night, a good 15 of us. And we all came to the same conclusion that if fentanyl was around back in 1979, 1980, I think that more than 3/4 of the class of 1980 out of Burbank High, I think we would all be dead. Seriously.
Right. I can dig that.
You know what I mean? I mean, we would all be dead.
Yeah.
And if this stuff was around in the 60s, holy cow, I don't think many of us would be born. And I'm not exaggerating. It's just that bad of a problem. So my mission now, I mean, it's gone a little bit more than drug-induced homicide. You know, when this happened to Daniel, when I found out that it was fentanyl, once I met with Matt Capelota and understood that it was drug-induced homicide, Matt started writing and calling his local legislators, and I did as well. I called State Senator Scott Wilk, who is a Republican. I called Assemblywoman Christy Smith, a Democrat, and I also called Assemblyman Tom Lackey's office, and I called Congressman Mike Garcia, Republican, out of here, District 25. And I also called the John and Ken show, KFI AM 640. That was the first show that I did, talking about the problem and talking about drug-induced homicide. And then a wonderful man, Austin Dave, who is the head of the journalism department out of College of the Canyons. He did a Facebook interview on me. He did a series of 2. And so that went on Facebook and got over 30,000 or 35,000 views. So that was getting the word out there. And I sat down with State Senator Scott Wilk, and I talked to him about what I needed to do or wanted to do. And I kept trying Christy Smith's office. I never got a return call from her. I sat down with Scott Wilk, and I sat down with Mike Garcia with the other 4 fathers who are now they are my brothers of another mother. All 4 of us are, and they all have different stories. Ed Turner, whose son, college straight A student, football player, has a backache and has an interview, and he decides to take a Percocet, and his college roommates find him dead. Matt Capilotto's daughter suffers from insomnia, so she takes a pill and she passes away. I mean, Eddie Kobilis, whose son in Jersey was going to go to a party, and he was a little nervous, so he took what he thought was a Xanax, and it was pure fentanyl. One and done. Not even, no substance abuse disorder, nothing. And he ends up dying, Michael Gray's daughter, who, beautiful Amanda, who we regard her now as our saint, she passed away to fentanyl as well. And it's just, it's the whole spectrum. So we have kids who are self-medicating. They're self-medicating either because they're depressed or they're bipolar or something like that, or they just want to self-medicate because they're sad, whatever, or have substance abuse disorder. You have your other segment of population that are addicted to drugs and, crazily enough, seek fentanyl to get high because it's 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin. So that's another segment of the population that's being affected. And then you have the 1 pill, 1 kill generation. Children as young as 11, 12, 13 years old dying. And nobody is saying anything about it. It's falling on deaf ears.
Hi, Jaime, with your crusade that you've been on and everything that you've been doing, what type of critical response have you been receiving? Because you're doing a great deal. I understand you when you say no one. I mean, what is that like in terms of finding individuals to support you and continue to make sure that the word gets out?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you. I mean, when this happened to Daniel, and I started doing my research, and I go onto Facebook, and I don't know how the algorithm works on Facebook, but once you click on the drug-induced homicide, all of a sudden, all these other groups start popping up from all over the place. And then I started seeing of all of these groups and of all these people who have lost their children. Tori Kropp from Marin County, she has a movement called the Hope Movement. And then you have My Life Matters, Ryan's Opioid Pandemic Coalitions, Parents Against Illicit Narcotics, Parent and Family Movement Against Lethal Drugs, PANDA, Drug-Induced Homicide, Shattered Proof, Broken No More. It's just all of these groups. So I find all these groups, and with Matt Capilotto, then we met a gentleman whose name is Michael Gray. Now, Michael Gray is a very interesting guy. He is a very, very smart man, a lot smarter than probably me and Matt put together. But he was very curious too of what happened to his daughter. And when Michael Gray had come to Michael Gray he's a statistician. He loves numbers. He looks at numbers. And he took the numbers of overdose deaths in the United States from 1999 up to, I believe it was 2018. And you could see the curve of people who were passing away due to overdose, either due to methadone or heroin. But in 2013, so we have a gradual, you have a gradual line going up for methadone and heroin overdoses. But in 2013, the graph does this. It just shoots straight up. And where he got those numbers from was a professor in the University of Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. And he looked at that spike and he goes, what the hell is going on here? Why all of a sudden do we have this spike in deaths in 2013? And it came out, the information was that they weren't taking into account the amount of people who were dying due to synthetic opioids, which is completely different than heroin or methadone. And then you try to figure out, well, who is trying to physically take a synthetic opioid? Who does that? And then you came to the conclusion, well, wait a minute. Nobody was, when you start hearing the stories of parents across the nation and saying, my kid wasn't a drug addict, or maybe my kid was self-medicating, but wasn't a drug addict. But fentanyl came into play in 2013, and it has ravaged it is decimating almost a generation of children in the United States. The CDC numbers, by the way, are completely wrong. They're talking about 78,000 overdoses in 1 year. Virginia Krieger out of Ohio, who's also a statistician, and I'm going to meet her this Sunday, Monday, and I'll get to that in a minute. She crunched the numbers, and it is her belief that in the United States from 2013 to 2020, get this, 602,000 people have perished due to synthetic opioids like fentanyl or the analogs or fentanyl analogs.
602,000, Jaime?
602,000.
Jesus.
That is an incredible discrepancy between what the CDC is reporting. Any thoughts as to why that differential is so large?
Right.
Well,
Oh my God.
it believes it. I think a lot of it, the CDC takes its numbers from the county coroner's offices, and they haven't had if they find fentanyl in your blood, they'll say, like my son was drug toxicity, right? That's my son's death certificate. At first, the first one that I got said deferred.
Jaime, what does that mean?
What does deferred mean?
They had no idea what it was until the toxicology report came back.
Okay.
So I went ahead and I paid Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. I wanted the toxicology report. I told them I didn't want any pictures because that's pretty brutal. I didn't want to see my son that way. And so I received the toxicology report. And before that, let me just backtrack a little bit. When I spoke to the authorities and I knew that it was fentanyl, I immediately told them, I remember I said, well, you better not classify this as either a drug overdose or suicide, because I'll come after you guys. I am not playing around. You know, there's something definitely wrong here. Again, how does the respiratory system of a perfectly normal, healthy 16-year-old boy shut down? How does that happen, right? So what I'm getting at is that due to the CDC numbers are incorrect because it's very subjective. They're objective, but very subjective as well, right? They can only report what they find. And then it's also, I guess, subjectively, if there are some, because a lot of people are still in the mindset that if somebody takes a pill and that person dies, they just classify it as an overdose. So the county coroner does exactly the same thing and just says overdose.
Not the case.
Do you see what I mean? So they
Right.
don't count that.
Mhm.
When I called the investigators at Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, I asked them specifically, do you have any idea, or could you please give me the numbers or tell me how many children or how many young people under the age of 30 have passed away due to fentanyl poisoning in LA County in 2018 alone? And goes, can't tell you that. We don't know.
Mhm.
Well, when my son came across your table, what did you think?
What was their response, Jaime?
He goes, well, we think it's fentanyl. And I go, well, you need to put that in your report then. Even if it's your subjective finding, you need to put at the very last paragraph that you think that it was fentanyl or an analog that had taken his life. And I guess they must have, well, they listened to me. Let's just put it that way. And they did. Yeah.
Real
Yeah.
good thing. I'm glad.
I mean, I have a question for you, and I think, maybe some of our listeners may have that question as well. You talked about Proposition 47, 57, and AB 109, which weakens how we prosecute crimes and therefore makes it hard to use the drug-induced homicide stance. Can you share with us how those propositions weaken that argument?
Yes. So AB 109 basically transferred responsibility for housing and supervision of some sentence felons from state prisons to county jails. And the reason why they did that, and I believe it was called, if I'm not mistaken, yes, AB 109, the Public Safety Realignment, and it became effective on October 1st of 2011. So what they basically did is they classified what were nonviolent felons, and you're gonna, it's quite surprising when I tell you what's going to happen here. But what they did is they transferred nonviolent felons from state prisons to county prisons because they wanted to reduce the amount of money that California taxpayers have to pay for our state prisons. So they were basically transferring the responsibility from state to counties. And they did it with nonviolent felons. Prop 47 reduced sentences for drug possession and thefts under $950. So before, if you stole $400 or more, or you had drugs on you that was $400 or more, they counted that as a felony. But what Prop 47 did, it enhanced it up to $950. So yes, go ahead. You got a question?
No. I was just saying, okay. Makes sense. I'm sorry, Jaime.
And then, no, it's okay. And then Prop 57 was early release of state prison inmates and tougher rules to get juveniles charged as adults for egregious things. So basically what happened was before with AB 109, the key features of that is it shifted responsibility for housing and supervising non-serious, non-violent, and non-sexual offenders from state to county jails. So before they were housed in state prisons, they were supervised by state parole agents, and the violation, if they violated their parole, they would go back to state prison for a year. What happened was after this law went into effect, they were housed in county jail, they were supervised by county probation, and a violation was a mandatory 10 days in county jail. That was it. So instead of a year, they would do 10 days. So that's the key features of AB 109. So what they did basically is they decreased the prison population on the state level, but it increased it on the county level. Low-level offenders were being released early to make room for other nonviolent felons, because county jail is not, from what I understand, and forgive me if I'm mistaken, county jail is not supposed to house felons per se. I think county jail is more for those persons who have to go to jail for what is that? Drunk driving or driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, things like that.
Yeah,
Maybe
for criminal misdemeanors.
Okay.
Misdemeanors. Thank you
Got
for
it.
projecting that. So for criminal misdemeanors, thank you. And so what happened was, now you have these nonviolent felons going in there. So that's one part of the equation. Proposition 47 was called the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, and that went into effect November 4th of 2014. So thefts over $400 before was considered to be a felony. Any theft from any kind of business out of more than $400 was considered to be a felony. And some drug possession for personal use was also considered to be a felony. But after this passed, anything over $950 was considered to be a felony. Theft from businesses under $950 were counted as misdemeanors, and then drug possessions for personal use were also misdemeanors. So basically, it decreased again the population of the state prisons and things like that. But what exactly is considered to be a nonviolent felony? So what happened was a lot of people who were caught with like quantities of drugs that you knew that they weren't just in possession, but that they were actually, they were distributing it. Many times in courts, they'd plead down from felony to drug possession. So it was just a misdemeanor. So a lot of these drug dealers who are caught with these drugs and instead of distributing, they plead down from felonies down to misdemeanors. So that's one thing, that's one of the equations out there. But what were considered to be nonviolent felonies? Human trafficking involving a minor, PC 236.1 is considered to be a nonviolent felony. Hate crimes are considered to be a nonviolent felony. Arson of forest land causing physical injuries is considered to be a nonviolent felony. Assault with a deadly weapon on a peace officer is considered to be a nonviolent felony. Active participation in a street gang is considered to be a nonviolent felony. Exploding destructive devices with intent to cause injury, first-degree burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, force likely, domestic violence, battery with serious bodily injury, solicitation to commit murder, inflicting corporal injury on a child, and last but not least, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's really sad, is rape, sodomy, oral copulation of an unconscious person or by use of date rape drugs is considered to be a non-violent felony.
I don't even
That
understand.
is unbelievable.
Juro, I see your face, Tab. Where?
Hey, listen, guys. First of all, Jamie, it's a pleasure, brother. I'm hurt because this was,
Amen.
I can tell, man. First of all, I want to congratulate you, man, because you're a very brave dude, man. You're dealing with this better than I know I could. And I have two sons, brother, and God bless you, man. But I'm trying to hear your story, but I'm talking to the police, man. We arrested this perk that's in the building, and I'm just, I'm coming back and forth, but you're telling a great story. You're helping a lot of people. You are so helpful right now to a lot of people that's going through this. You ain't the only one, but your passion and all the stuff you're doing, man. I know people us on the Poetry of Justice, so we appreciate it, and I know all our listeners do too, man. You're amazing, man, and God bless you. And like we talked the other day, I already prayed for your son and your family, and just continue, man. The research and everything you went through, it's crazy, man. It's unbelievable,
Thank you thank you very much for your words. They humble me. I am just a bereaved father. I'm just another statistic that is no longer wanting my son to just be a statistic. I have to, in one way, for my own inner peace, I have to get the word out there that fentanyl and its analogs are killing our children in a manner that nobody can comprehend or understand. And I have to get the word out there that parents, you need to talk to your kids. You need to supervise their Snapchats. Kids, just like I did, want to experiment with drugs. They want-
Rashid, and yours, I know because you're a little bit of a younger generation, Rashid. So I want to hear your thoughts, and I want to hear your thoughts, please.
Okay, so again, my condolences to you, Jaime. Sorry that you.
We're gonna
Just keep in contact with me, buddy.
stand by. We're gonna get him muted.
One second.
Thank you.
All right, there we
Alrighty,
go.
there we go.
Okay, so again, my condolences, Jaime, for you and your family for your terrible loss.
Thank you.
And honestly, for my generation, which I am a millennial, not gonna, I'm a hide or shy away from that. Probably when I was living out in Moreno Valley, in a Riverside, there were definitely a lot of recreational drug use. Not on my part, but I know of people that were actually partaking in it, but it was mostly around marijuana and some ecstasy and some of the quote unquote small time things, the quote unquote party drugs, because when you're out in Moreno Valley and Riverside, you're literally bored out of your mind. There's nothing much to do. But me and my a close circle of friends, I mean, some have partaken in ecstasy. A lot of us have partaken in smoking marijuana. I'm included in that. Also, I do certain forms of CBD that are in different quantities and different intakes. But at the end of the day, I'm still me at the end of the day. And just to say that I think my generation learned a lot, especially from the generation that came from the 60s and 70s, especially the 80s, where and the 90s, where the war on drugs was a big thing.
Right.
You even had those commercials going around when I was a kid, with the whole drugs commercial, saying, don't do drugs. And then you see the big tobacco company talking about don't smoke, but yet, they're sitting here still selling something that actually kills you. Because at the end of the day, it was always about money. It wasn't about you as a person. It wasn't about you as a person. It was about the corporations making money off of you. And they made money off of the minority community. They made just money off of people in general, because one of the main partakers in these type of exotic drugs, the party drugs, would be of, I'm sorry to say, white America. Like, those are your main audience when it comes to these type of things. But at the end of the day, we've learned, the actual danger and damage that these drugs in specific amounts of quantity can actually do to a person, which is why, when all these doctors be prescribing all these types of, medications. I think they just passed one that's supposed to be a quote unquote cure for COVID, called Resdemir.
Oh my.
That's been actually approved, which
I'm
we
not
have
taking
no,
that.
yeah, I have no faith in that at all. But but just to get serious, we've learned, to take a natural approach. In fact, with things that come from the earth, when it comes to medicinal purposes, because we've now know that hemp, marijuana actually has medicinal healing purposes. So
Absolutely.
we go more towards that route than we try to go down the dark path, which is substance abuse, which still happens to this very day. And it sickens me because what we lack as a society is self-control.
Yes.
Like once we get down, that mindset, a depression, which during this pandemic has been high.
Yeah.
A lot of people have just been depressed. You can't
Yeah.
go outside. You can't go out and dine at your favorite restaurant. You have to deal with your significant other on a daily basis. You have to deal with your kids every single day. You can't send them to school to get that escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall I say?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rashid.
Thank
All those
you.
things are very, very,
And very valid. And let me
valid.
just
What are you thinking, Jaime?
really bad news for you, Rashid.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Oh no.
Really bad news for you, because it's now proven that, well, first of all, I have family members who, and I have friends that they smoke weed.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's legal in the state of California. But what I'm telling them is, if you're going to smoke weed, you make sure that you buy from a dispensary.
Right.
What's happened now is that they're cutting fentanyl into marijuana now.
Yeah.
Yes, Eddie was talking to us
They're
about
lacing
that.
it.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, this I've actually learned about as well, because if you aren't going to actual legal dispensaries where it is actually certified to be completely safe, you are taking a gamble with your life when it comes to taking marijuana from these outside sources in which you consider, he's a homie of mine. I know that he got it from a legit source.
How old are you, Rashid, if I may ask?
I'm 28.
You're 28 years old. Your brain was fully developed by the age of 25. But what do you do when you're 14, or you're 15, or you're 16 years old, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, do you want to smoke this joint?" Or, "Hey, why don't we smoke this joint? Let's have fun. Let's get high." And do you think that kid would really understand if that marijuana came from a dispensary or not?
Right.
No.
Right. No, they're not going to ask.
No.
Absolutely not.
No, God, no. Even grown folks ain't gonna even ask that. You know what I mean, Jaime?
No, they're not.
So I'm telling everybody, I stopped. I've got no problem with people drinking. I myself, I quit. I was a heavy drinker, and I was a party animal. And when my son was 1.5 years old, I decided to put my big boy pants on and be a father to this boy.
Okay.
And build a business. And so I quit drinking. I quit smoking a year after I quit drinking. I quit partying, period. And I haven't done anything in 17 years. But I myself, I have lots of friends that drink and smoke pot, and they need to. I mean, I have friends who have severe arthritis.
Me.
And they smoke weed, but what I'm
That's
telling
very
them,
true.
it helps arthritis, and you're absolutely right, Rashid. It does have a lot of medicinal purposes. But what I'm telling people today is that if you don't know the providence of that joint that somebody gave you, I would just throw it away.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that factor one, especially taking it from those sources, because
If you can go to even if you go to a party and somebody is passing a joint away, I would
No, you can't even do that no more. And then it's COVID, so you
not
can't even smoke behind
it's-
nobody now.
Especially if you go to a
It's not-
party,
it's
don't.
COVID.
It's COVID.
Rashida, I would tell you,
It's crazy.
I would go far as to say, are you nuts? Or are you trying
Right.
to
I'm
But like you must be
offended
doing it
that you offered this to me.
right.
You know, Jaime, you talked about in our pre-interview that this epidemic, it doesn't know race, ethnicity,
Class,
socioeconomic status, gender lines, any of those things. And Shelley C., I know that this ugly, ugly drug has appeared in your circle and in your village. Would you share a little bit about your interaction with it?
Yes, I had my aunt was affected by kind of like what you guys are touching on, especially what Jaime is touching on. And that's the reason why I kind of had a very hysterical reaction to my son, because I understand that you feel that it's weed and it's harmless, but where you're getting it from is what makes me hysterical. If you're going to this dispensary, I don't have a problem with that. Where I have a problem is you don't know where that person is getting it from. And my mother actually had a bad reaction because my aunt received street it was weed, or she thought she was having weed, and my mother had a very bad reaction to it because it was laced with actually PCP, not fentanyl, but drugs has had a very profound effect in my family, because my aunt, she suffered so badly from it, thinking that she was only getting marijuana, and of course it was laced with something else. And then my mother, entertaining my aunt, and her friend, my mother's friend, received a very bad reaction because they thought all they were receiving was marijuana. So when I say I can relate because I do believe that Jaime's son thought he was getting something else other than what he got. And that is what made, like when he said drug-induced homicide, it could very easily happen to me, to my mom, to my aunt, anybody in our family, because we all think we're getting one thing and we're getting another, and it becomes lethal and it kills people. And yes, it has dramatically affected my family. And I can say, thankfully, my mother is okay, but my mother has had some reaction from thinking she was getting one thing, which was just plain old marijuana, and it wasn't, and she got something else. And the same with my aunt, who became addicted based on the fact she was thinking she was getting marijuana and she got something else. So yes,
That's tragic.
and I can see Jaime shaking his head, but yes, it affects everybody. And I'm thinking back, maybe that if my aunt and my mother were in this time and age, they may not have been survivors, because right now it's lethal. And, back in those days, they laced it, but they laced it to make you keep coming back, not to kill you. And
Right.
If I may interject, fentanyl is a very tricky synthetic opioid. It's been synthetic. Fentanyl has been in the United States since 1959, and it was only used in a hospital setting, and it was only used for the pain was so unbearable, traumatic injuries, that the injury is so bad that you could die because of the pain, or people who are on their last legs of cancer treatment, that the pain was so bad that they just want to alleviate that pain. And in a hospital setting with a doctor who specializing in the composition of the fentanyl of itself, knowing your weight, how many micrograms he can give you without killing you and taking that pain away. I mean, that's how they do it.
Right. My grandmother was a registered nurse, and she had seen that abuse going on, and it was very, very traumatic for her as a nurse.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. But what's going on now is you got these drug dealers down in Mexico who are making counterfeit pills. All right. And they don't know. So I don't know if this is a rumor or not, but I had heard I still, it's just hearsay. But I had heard that the drug dealers here in Los Angeles actually go down to Skid Row and give a pill to somebody to see if that person survives or not. And if the person does survive, then they know they have a good batch. And if the person
Wow.
doesn't
Oh my
survive,
That is
gosh.
then
horrible.
they know
Testing
that they
drugs on
got
the homeless.
that
Yeah.
they're giving it to the, so that, why do you think there's been a spike in deaths in the homelessness population in LA County? I mean,
My God.
Oh my gosh, Jaime.
so
I
then
never
they
knew
know,
that.
then they know that they got a
They
good
got a high. They got
so
to
if
get.
the person doesn't die, they know they got a good batch. If the person dies, they know they got a bad batch and they throw it away or whatever they do with it. I don't know. But this is a different ball game. And this does not discriminate color. It does not discriminate creed. It doesn't discriminate socioeconomic status. It's every single American is affected by this because of the opioid crisis that we have in the United States. But more so, what scares me and really what urges me to continue with this messaging is that one pill, one kill generation. That one pill, one kill. That 11, 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old who goes to a party, who gets a little bit of peer pressure. Hey, I got a Xanax bar. That's what they call them, Xanax bar. Do you want a Xanax bar? Yeah, sure, I'll take it. And then the kid takes it and he's dead. I mean,
No,
Why do you think it's
I,
Xanax?
yeah,
I'm
Is
sorry. Go
there
ahead.
like a cough medicine too?
Xanax.
Jackie? I'm hearing.
It's called lean.
Oh, the
thank you.
lean.
Yes, they have it in lean as well. Lean is cough syrup mixed with oxycodone. But what's
Right.
happening is if they're mixing the oxycodone, what they think is oxycodone, they're mixing the cough syrup with fentanyl, it's killing them too. But not only that, I mean, what we were talking about with Rashid about smoking marijuana, and a lot of people here in California that smoke marijuana, if you're getting your marijuana from a source that is not a dispensary, you're just a fool. I'm sorry. You
Right.
might as well just grab a gun,
And roulette.
bullet, and just spin the barrel, and just because you are playing Russian roulette with your own life, first and foremost.
Of course, like because
Right.
like I make sure that that the content that I get is from an actual legal source.
Yes.
Because because I trust my mother with that.
Dexter King from our
trust-
Facebook feed, he says that if there's a green cross painted or drawn on the buildings, that is not a place that he wants to go to. But he says that he researches his dispensaries for a year, before he actually started dealing with that part, one particular dispensary. But Jaime, you're absolutely correct. It's just
Right.
it's roulette.
Right. And
It's decimating the African American community. It's decimating the Latin American community, and especially now during COVID-19. I don't want to blame, but alcoholism has gone through the roof. Divorce has gone through the roof. Drug abuse has gone through the roof. We are social animals.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Do you-
supposed to
We are.
socialize. Being in a house, not going like Rashid said, to be able to go to your favorite restaurant or go to the theme park or go to Magic Mountain or Disneyland or go to a bar or have a drink. I mean,
or go to the movies.
Right.
Just
or go to the movies. I mean, but the message here is, I mean, for all parents and taking it from me is that you have to watch your children. You have to let them know that this is what this is. It's a new paradigm. It's a new paradigm because the authorities are not taking into account this one pill, one kill generation of children who are dying because they're taking either a Xanax bar, ecstasy, lean, an oxycodone, an oxycontin, or a Percocet. The drug dealers actually, if I'm not mistaken, last week, and I'm going to segue into another thing, a 3-year-old child from North Carolina died. They had given her baby aspirin, and it turned out to be pure methamphetamine. The way the drug dealers are bringing up drugs through the border they're disguising them as real drugs, and with the same bottle, the same safety features and everything like that. And it has actually gotten into our prescription drug supply, which is another warning too, is you have to watch out there's a conversation in the United States about big pharma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a conversation, well, why, maybe we should buy our prescription drugs from Canada. because
Right.
Canada's just much less expensive than it is in the United States. But what people don't realize is that these cartels have set up fraudulent pharmacies online, and there's no way to tell who the owner of these online pharmacies are in Canada. You go on there, you type in that you need an oxycodone, they sent it out, and you may not be getting what you thought you bought. I mean,
I
it is
know. It's
stupid.
too unsafe to do anything on the internet. There's no way, Jaime. You know what I mean?
No.
You
And
can, if you want more information on that, I would I posted it on my Facebook feed, which now I used to be very private, but now it's public because I just every day I'm posting something about this crisis. It's safemedicines.org. You may want to look at that. It's pretty
Okay.
scary what they have. It's called safemedicines.org.
You know, Jaime, one thing that really impacted me, and I haven't been able to shake that since our pre-interview, which was at the beginning of the week, is that we have raised, or we are raising, a culture of children that we throw pills at. You can't concentrate, here's a pill. You can't sit down, here's a pill. So that
yeah,
we've begun as a society to normalize
pill
these
take.
synthetic drugs and pill taking.
Mhm.
And I think it makes our 12, 13, 14, 15 years old individuals much more vulnerable. So for our listeners that, you know, the Poetry of Justice show tries to be a platform for education, awareness, and listening, how can parents better connect with their students, or well, students, because I'm an educator, with their children to get the word out? Do they talk to them direct, straight on, about what could potentially happen, or what advice would you have for this
Mhm.
population?
You know, society has changed so much in the last 40 years. And now I think if parents actually spend 10 or 15 minutes with their child on a daily basis, it's a lot, because the child comes home from school, they're on their phone, they go straight to their rooms, they're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram, or they're playing video games. They come down, have dinner. Mom and dad are working because mom and dad need to work so they can pay the bills. So they're not really spending that much time with their children. I mean,
Right.
so how do you incorporate your child into your daily life? You just have to have a bond with your child where, um, thankfully, the last year that I had it with my son was the best year ever. We grew so tight. We could talk about everything, and I mean everything. Uh, I won't get into details, but he would talk to me about everything. And we just had this fantastic relationship that I could talk to him about everything, and talk about drugs. Come on, mom, I'm not going to do it. Come on, dad, I'm not going to do that. Okay, whatever. It's not like that. You have to sit down with your child. You have to have a relationship with your children in a way that meets the times. Because we don't have that luxury anymore of having both parents or have whatever the reason may be, that we don't have that society where mom stayed at home bringing up the children and dad was at work making the bacon, or you know what I mean. We don't have that luxury anymore, and women don't want to stay home anyway. I mean, women want to work, and empower women to go out and work, you know. But I just strongly believe that you have to really build a very deep relationship with your children, so much so that they have enough trust in you that they can come at you and tell you anything.
I agree, Jaime. I think, but one of the things I think that is most important to stress, I don't know about anybody else, but in my day and age, and in my mom's day and age, and my aunt's day and age, a pill couldn't kill you. I
That's
think a lot of people don't understand that, like you said, that half of a pill that your son took is what took him out. Everybody has this perception that drugs is something you smoke or you snort or you inject. people don't understand that there is a pill, even half a pill, that can take you out. So I think that's one of the most important things that we miss in telling our children, because I'm going to tell you, I missed it. I missed it with my children. I never said anything about a pill or cough syrup. My children had to educate me that there was a cough syrup and that there was a pill out there that could take you out, because I had no idea. I'm thinking, okay, don't you snort nothing, don't you smoke nothing, don't inject anything because it'll kill you. Never, never in a million years would I say, do not take a pill. Never. And I think that's very important that we must share with our children today, that even a pill or half a pill could take you out.
Do not take a pill unless your name is on that prescription bottle. Period. Do not smoke a joint that somebody, your friend, passes on to you when you don't know the origins of where that joint came from.
Exactly.
Period.
Right, because at the end of the day, you know, any prescription, any type of, you know, medication, no matter where it comes from, there is a chance that you can overdose and you can develop an addiction, because drugs have an addictive property to them at the end of the day. So there's a chance of you just being completely addicted, and then you doing whatever it takes for you to get that fix, and that's what leads to a lot of the problems that we have.
I agree. And I'm almost ashamed to say that it was my children that had to educate me on that, because I never would have thought, never, just like you, had I seen a pill on their nightstand or on their dresser, I never would have thought that that would be something that they needed to look out for. So I think it's almost, we need to re-educate ourselves that, you know, in my day and age and in my mother's day and age, it was smoking, injecting, and snorting. Never would I ever thought a pill. And that's what scares me. So they had to educate me. I had no idea. And if had I known, of course, I would have equipped my kids, but we don't know that in this day and age. And I think education is very important when it comes to something like that.
Well, education is one part of it, I believe. Absolutely. The biggest, if you want to keep your kid alive, you just got to make sure that they don't take these pills, period.
Right.
You know, and if they're going to smoke marijuana, make sure that they get it from a dispensary. I don't know. But the other side of it, though, too, you know, is this: are we going to continue allowing drug dealers to do this to our society and let them go out on the streets because of the laws that we have in the state of California? I mean, we have 25 states that have drug-induced homicide laws in place. The one that has the least teeth is Colorado, which will only prosecute a person for drug-induced homicide if a minor dies. And Oklahoma, you go to jail for life. But let me just give you what the definition of drug-induced homicide is, if I may. Drug-induced homicide is a person commits drug-induced homicide when he or she unlawfully delivers a controlled substance to another, and any person's death is caused by the injection, inhalation, absorption, or ingestion of any amount of that controlled substance.
Okay.
So what that does is now the prosecutor doesn't have to prove murder in the first degree or murder in the second degree. But I think there's a lot of people that are afraid in our state legislature here in California anyways, to enact these types of laws. One, because the majority, I'm Latino, I'm Colombian American, I'm brown. And I think they say that the incarceration rate in our county jails and state prisons is probably 87% minority, and the rest are all white. So instead of wanting to prosecute them, we're just letting them out free. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, you know? So I was told that California because the way our legislator is right now would never, ever, ever enact a drug-induced homicide statute, period.
Jaime, do we understand why that would be? Is it too much gray area? What have you been?
Remember what we talked about before. We talked about nonviolent felons, not wanting to prosecute nonviolent felons. Remember when we talked about that? That falls under as well as distribution of drugs. So they don't want to reverse what they've already done with Prop 4757 and AB 109. They don't want to do that. So we were left scratching our heads because we sat down with our state legislators and we talked to them about it. And specifically Matt Capilotto, he set up a meeting with State Senator Melissa Melendez out of, I believe she's Murrieta, North San Diego County, Murrieta, Temecula area. And her legislative director told us that California will never sign into law a drug-induced homicide statute, only because it would go against what they've already done with Prop 47 and 57. What most people don't understand about this whole equation, he goes, I understand, you know, the whole thing about spending millions of dollars in state prisons. I understand that. I understand that the majority of the people who are incarcerated for one reason or another are the majority are all minorities. I understand that as well. I get it. But which one of those legislators is going to look at me in the eye, who I lost my son Daniel to murder, and not tell me that somebody should not pay for that? If I grab my gun and I go shoot somebody, I'm going to be prosecuted for murder. If I give somebody a pill and that pill kills them, instead of it being deemed a drug-induced homicide, they deem it an overdose. And that drug dealer continues dealing his or her wares with absolutely no consequences. And that to me is ridiculous. And we as a society, we have to sit down and we have to check ourselves. You know, are there some people who are incarcerated who shouldn't be incarcerated? Absolutely. I agree with that, right? But there are some people out there who are murdering our children and are not paying the consequences for this.
What do you feel about, I have Daryl Barnes, and he's joining us on Facebook, and he says that 90% of this country is drug addicted. He says, if you don't believe it, try taking away the nation's coffee supply for just 1 week and see what happens. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I appreciate that. So I don't know, Jaime, what do you have a large fight? I understand there's some big things coming up. Congress talk, you know, going to Congress, going to Senate. You're not going to let this up. You're not going to stop.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form going to let go. My wife tells me, I love your stubbornness sometimes, and sometimes I don't like it. And then I'm just that guy who, and I'm so stubborn that, but truthfully, you know, I'm doing it for my kid and everybody else's kids. I've got a lot going on right now. I know that maybe with the drug-induced homicide that we're not going to be able to get something like that passed, but Matt Capilotto out of Temecula came up with a fantastic idea. If you are ever prosecuted for if you're ever prosecuted for drunk driving or driving under the influence of drugs, before they let you out, you have to sign like a waiver, from what I understand. And that waiver states that if anybody ever dies because you are driving drunk or under the influence of drugs, then they can charge you with vehicular manslaughter or something along that lines. So then we started thinking, why instead of doing a drug-induced homicide law in the state of California, come up something like the Watson law, but they would be named the Alexandra law for Matt's daughter. And basically it says, The Alexander law allows the prosecution to charge this offense as second-degree murder under California Penal Code Section 187. In order to convict you of second-degree murder under the Alexander law, the prosecution must prove that you committed an act that caused the death of another. You had a state of mind called malice aforethought, and you killed without lawful justification. Malice aforethought can be either expressed or implied, but for purposes of second-degree Alexander murder charge, the prosecution will rely on evidence that shows you explicitly or exhibited implied malice. To show that you acted with implied malice, the prosecution must show that you knew the act of selling or distributing a controlled substance was dangerous to human life. This is likely to be the most contested fact of an Alexander murder charge because it is difficult for the prosecution to show that you personally knew the act of selling or distributing of a controlled substance was dangerous to human life. However, if you have a prior drug sales or drug distribution conviction on your record, okay, the prosecution will use this evidence to show that you have firsthand knowledge of the dangers of selling or distributing a controlled substance, right? So in that case, I don't think anybody on the left or the right would be against something like that, because if you were arrested for distribution of drugs, and before they let you out, even if it's a misdemeanor, and they let you out, you sign a waiver, and you understand on that waiver that you're signing that if they catch you again and you sold drugs and it caused the life of somebody, then that's second-degree murder. And then they can put you away to jail for that. So that's the first thing. So we're going to try to do the Watson law here in California. I hope that we can I've been trying to make this as bipartisan as possible. I've been trying to I want it from the left and I want it from the right. You know, it has to be bipartisan so it could pass. So on the state level, I want the Watson law or the Alexander law when it comes up for votes in January, February, whenever that may be, when the legislator comes back, that we can get that enacted. So that might take care of that. The second component of this, of my advocacy, is awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness. That people talk about this and do not stop talking about this, because nobody is talking about it. Because again, everybody just says that this is an overdose and that's it. That's not an overdose. Kids are dying, one pill, one kill. They're dying because they're going to these parties. Somebody's giving them a Xanax bar and they're dying. And it's now, unfortunately, in our cocaine supply as well. There are people who are passing away because they're doing cocaine. If I am not mistaken, 3 months ago, an African-American couple in Las Vegas, the gentleman was an actor from the Twilight series, I believe. And they found him and his girlfriend dead in their hotel room the next morning. And they found the cocaine. They did an analysis of the cocaine, and they found out that it had been also compromised with fentanyl.
Yeah.
Jaime and panelists, could this be some sort of population control? Because I remember, like, back in the day, the dope man, you want to keep your customer coming. You don't want to kill your customer base. I'm just far-fetching, but I don't know, guys. This seems, you know what I mean? Fact is stranger than fiction. I don't understand that.
I don't either. I don't understand
Like, why do you want to kill?
why
You know
you
what I'm
want to
saying?
kill your clientele. I know back in the 80s with the whole crack explosion, the point was they would give you enough to get you hooked and fiend for it, and you're going to keep coming back.
To make
But
money.
but to kill you off, there's no repeat buyers.
Back in the 80s, it affected mostly the African-American community and the Latino community, right? It wasn't affecting the highest spheres of society. But this stuff.
Fine. Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jaime.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is completely
This
different.
is the pill game. This is a new game. This just wasn't usually for us. You know what I'm saying? You got the upper epsilon.
Game. I mean,
Yeah.
they're killing off all the people who take the pill.
Well,
Right.
let me put it to you this way, and I'll just tell you what I think, and in a very unabashed way. It's all coming from China. All of the fentanyl is coming from China. The fentanyl that we use in a hospital setting here in the United States We produce it internally in the United States in the hospital setting.
So all of this other backdoor stuff is from China,
It's
the
coming from China.
cartels.
It started
Yes.
coming into the United States through the U.S. postal system. Using
2000.
the United States postal system, and
Right, which is why they had that campaign of be careful when you open your mail because sometimes when you open your mail, you might end up having something splashed in your face and it could be very acidic. I forgot the name of it, of what it was
The
called,
ricin?
but I
Something
remember.
like that.
anthrax or something like that.
Anthrax.
Yeah.
That was it.
Right.
Anthrax.
So the Chinese are selling it to the Mexican cartels. The Mexican cartels are businessmen. They know how to make money. That's all they want. They're very greedy. They understand that we have an opioid crisis in the United States. You can buy a pill press for $5,500. You can actually go on Amazon and buy yourself a pill press. All you need is 3 or 5 micrograms of fentanyl in a pill. You put the dye in it, you press it, you put an M on one side, you put a 30 on the other, you put a little bit of fentanyl in there, and you give it to your distributors, and you start selling that in the United States. Now, found it very, there was a gentleman, somebody had sent me a video of a show where there was a gentleman in the highest spheres of our government that said that the Chinese are doing this to weaken us. In fact, the Chinese, they said that, they're killing off a whole generation of children without firing one shot, of military aged children without firing one shot.
Chemical and biological warfare. Shelley, what were you going to say?
I have never seen anything like this.
All right,
This
so we got
opened
chemical
up
warfare.
Pandora's box. When this happened to my son Daniel, and I started finding thousands upon thousands upon thousands of parents who are going through the same ache that I am. Some people just, they don't. God bless them. Some people just can't get in this fight. Others get in this fight, like myself, and I'm, and I get these other, and then we're going, what is going on here? And how is it that the government hasn't done anything about it? You can't blame Trump because they don't know how to address it. You can't blame Obama because he didn't know how to address it either. And you can't blame it on the Bushes either. This started happening in 2013. And again, that whole conversation about, it's just a drug overdose, but nobody was really looking at that one segment of our population, of those children between the ages of 11 and 25 who are dying, who had never had a substance abuse disorder, who had never used drugs, and are using a social platform to get this drug. They take it and they die. That is to me, you know what it's like to me? For me, it's like I'm waking up in a Stephen King novel every single day. It's like a nightmare. And it's like I want to scream to the top of my lungs, people, you need to wake up. This is what's going on. We have fraudulent pills coming up from our southern border, and it's killing our children.
Sounds like It the Clown, honestly, where just in town of Derry, where he's killing all these children, but yet the adults say nothing at all. And it's up to the kids in order to fight back, which I don't
and their
think,
children,
right, and their children. So it's like I'm applying that to today's society. Can we actually say that our children are going to fight back from this the same way in the Stephen King story?
Well, I have a question for you, Jaime, along those lines, Rashid. There seems to be a correlation in listening to you between depression, issues of mental health, and our children. Has there been any advocacy from you and your supporters to try to create more mental health services in communities, are making mental health services more accessible through the school systems. What can we do as a community to rally around that?
This is a problem of epic proportions, and it has so many tentacles to it that, you know, you can only, my message, I obviously, you know, I think that health insurance should be able to be provided to children, even for low income families. I think they should have the resources to have mental health, see psychologists and get the help that they need. I definitely believe in that. I definitely believe in mental health services in the school level. In my son's school, they had it, you know, and they do have it, and they have psychologists there and everything like that. I think that's very important. But I think also that that is just an echelon or a part of the bigger problem. The bigger problem is that we have fraudulent, fake opioids in our country, and people are taking them and they're dying, and nobody is saying anything about it because, one, of the stigma, two, they're calling them overdoses and that's it, and the children are dying and nobody's talking about that because the awareness is not out there, again, because of the stigma is so high. You know, even Shelley, I'm sorry, it was Shelley was talking about it, that even if I got you right, Shelley, you said it was kind of an embarrassment to talk about, you know, your auntie or your mom or something about that. And I think every family is just like, and us Latinos, we're famous for it. We just pick up the rug and just sweep it under them. We don't hide it from society. We are really famous for it. And Colombians especially, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it. Oh, somebody's got a problem. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't know. They do that. And that's just the way it is in our society. But you just can't do that anymore. You can't, you know, you can't. It is just, you can't do that. So
Jaime, what would you say we can do? We try to empower our listeners. So how can we join you in this fight? How can we create more awareness within our communities about fentanyl and drug-induced homicide laws?
Well, I would like, I have a partner, his name is Ed Turnan. He's going after and I'm sorry, and Amy Neville as well, down from Aliso Viejo. They have the education component. I believe that we should start educating our children. I mean, everybody is shut down because of COVID-19 and they're studying from home. I'm thinking it may be a video series where their children get credit or something, where they have to watch this message about what fentanyl is happening and what to watch out for, what not to do, what not to take. I think that's one step. The second step is both Democrats and Republicans have to get together on this issue, and they have to talk about it, and they have to come up with common sense laws to make sure that these peddlers of death who are out there killing their children like they killed my son have to pay for the crime of murder that they committed on our children. I think it's education. I think it's also the education. I think the legal component of it, and on a federal level, I believe that fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction. Period. Fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction. Period. And I feel that anybody found with the distribution of fentanyl, distributing it, should be deemed a terrorist and should either get, I don't know, life in prison, or if the crime was so egregious, like it takes out a whole community, get the death penalty.
Make it a capital crime.
Make it a capital crime. I mean,
capital punishment.
I'm thinking
okay, so the war on drugs continues, but
not so much though, Rashid. It's not such a war on drugs. We're talking about, is anthrax legal?
No. Is it? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Is anthrax legal?
Oh, we're gonna check it out.
I have no idea.
I don't know. Do you, Jaime, you know?
Is anthrax legal, or is poison? I mean, it's not a war on drugs. This is a synthetic opioid that was only supposed to be used in the hospital setting. It wasn't supposed to be counterfeit medications where it's killing our children. So it's not in a drug on wars. I understand where Rashid's coming from, though. We've spent $3 trillion, if not more, on this since 1977, I believe. Right? And what has that done? It
Actually, it's done a whole lot because we wouldn't be facing this.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So I just found out about anthrax. It said that possession of anthrax is not a crime unless it can be proved that it's for use as a weapon.
Interesting.
I think that's what makes it hard, right?
Right.
Is that you have to provide the proof that it's used as a
Right.
weapon.
Right. Just the same way that the anthrax was being used in the mailing system to actually poison people, that is, proof as a weapon. But if you just got anthrax sitting in your house, there's no way to prove that you're going to use that anthrax for malicious intent. Because that's
what other use would it have?
Well, that's true.
right.
What other use would it
What
have?
do you even need it for?
What do you
Great
even
point.
need it for?
You're right, Jaime, for sure.
Because to actually have it, you have to actually obtain permission from the Center from the CDC and the Agricultural Department.
That's not accurate. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
This has been a major and heavy topic, Jaime. I just wanted to share some of the commentary, and I'd like for you to do the same, Lori. Lori, you take the Zoom room. If you could let Jaime know what the critical reception is like.
Well, the Zoom room says they have a deep, deep appreciation for you, Jaime, and much thanks for your wisdom, bravery, and strength. That comes from our listener, Stevie Johnson, who also says that this is a very deep, deep show, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And I agree with Stevie. It is.
And then we also have.
I didn't mean to make it sad. I'm sorry. When I talk about my son, I just get emotional sometimes. But I truly appreciate everybody's empathy. That to me is very, very important. Is people's empathy, because when you have empathy, I don't want pity. You know what I mean? I want empathy. When you're empathetic towards a cause or towards something, you understand what's happening, right? You understand exactly what's going on. And so when people are empathetic, they understand what I'm trying to do. And they also have that knowledge where they can go to their children and they can talk to their children about this problem out there. Nobody here would hand a loaded gun to their child.
Correct. And I think we have a deep appreciation too, Jaime, because I myself have a deep appreciation for you sharing this and sharing the story and making us aware. I think it's important to your son Daniel to put that out there for us to understand and use that education that you're putting out there to educate our children, because I learned a great deal tonight, even though this type of thing has been in my family and has had some effect. I have a deep appreciation for you sharing your story and making us aware. I think that is incredible.
I think the sad is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
I think the sad is it's a human thing, and that's what we have to do, Jaime.
Yes.
We have to tap into the humanity of this world, because that is what is going to create the laws that will honor your son and create the laws that will protect future children. I think a big part of our world has lost connection with humanity, is what it means to be human, right? And that the person who's lacing these things, that they have a brother, a sister, a mother, a daughter, a father, that is the same as the person they're giving these laced drugs to, that impacts.
They're not even laced. They're just pure fentanyl. They're
right. Yeah, this is just what it is.
They're called fentanyls. I mean, that's what it is. But you're very right. This is not. This is a societal problem that again, and I keep saying it over and over and over again. But I just cannot hammer. I mean, the idea that county medical examiners have to start really sitting down, and they need to write down these numbers down correctly. They need to learn how to classify these things. When, you know, the statistic is that 3 out of 4 children that are poisoned with fentanyl are found in their bedrooms in the morning by their parents. 3 out of 4.
Unimaginable.
That is the statistic is 3 out of 4 children are found in their bedrooms, right? When the police forces or the authorities arrive to a home where there's a child who has passed away due to fentanyl, it should be treated like a crime scene, which many times they don't. They should treat it like a crime scene. They should collect the phone. They'll find the evidence on the phone, on Snapchat, Instagram. They can find out where they got those drugs from. Fingerprints, treat it like a crime scene, and conduct an investigation and find the person whoever furnished that drug or that pill to your child, your son or daughter, and have them prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Because, you know, again, they keep getting away with murder. That's what they're getting away with. And I'm tired of it. I'm done. I'm angry and I'm sad, and my only son is gone. And it's heartbreaking, and I feel bad. I feel terrible for his cousins and his grandma and his grandpa who just adored him, his mother who, thank God, she and I are great friends, and she's on this journey with me. But you know, it's really sad. Tomorrow I'm traveling to Ohio. On Monday, I'm meeting with 30 other groups of bereaved parents who have their own foundations and their own .orgs. Because all of these foundations, when their children die, you know, they start a foundation in their child's name, and they want to do something. They want to go either the education aspect, or they want to go after Snapchat, or they want to bring drug-induced homicide laws. But all of these groups are hyper-focused in their own advocacy, and it's like a dog chasing its tail. Mm-hmm. And when I was talking to these other parents, I said, well, we need to concentrate all of this energy so that our message would get out to the ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Policy. And so we're meeting in Columbus, Ohio, which has the 10th, no, it's the first, it's their overdose rate is 10 times higher than the national rate in the country. What is Ohio's number 1, and I believe West Virginia's number 2. At 2:00 in the afternoon, I'm proud to say that James O'Connor, the drug czar under this administration, is coming to talk to us, which is pretty big. And so we're very excited about that. The governor of Ohio might be joining us. I know the attorney general is also. And all of these groups are just very, very, you know, they're happy that the message is finally starting to get out there. And anything that I can do, you know, the people, I get calls from people every day, all day. They don't understand. They're still in shock of what happened to their children. Cami Velsi and Cindy Cruz Sorrento's up in Atascadero, and their children, their boys, one was 18, the other one I believe was 16 years old, no drug, you know, habits at all. They died too. I went up there and I spoke to their local TV station, and so I go anywhere I'm needed, and they needed me to go out to Ohio, and I'm starting anew with my 4 other of my bereaved fathers. We're starting a new foundation where we're going to get all of these parent organizations under our umbrella, and we're going to focus, and we're going to get our message out there and try to bring real change to this problem.
Absolutely. Well, I commend the work you do, Jaime. I definitely commend you. That's amazing.
I know. Gerald Tapper, I know you've had a busy night tonight, sir, but if you could just chime in before we head out tonight, I would love to hear you give us some commentary. Your fans, believe it or not, have been asking for you tonight, sir. So if you could definitely say something to Jaime as we prepare to depart the show.
Jaime covered every base that I could imagine. From what I heard, Jaime, you was on point, brother. And like, it's like your mission, whatever you're trying to accomplish and whatever you're going after, you're going to get it. It's no doubt about that. You know what I mean? It's no doubt about that. I mean, your vision is, and I know your heart is heavy, man, but God is good, brother. And, you know, just still just have faith in him and keep it moving, man, because your son enlightened something inside of you when he left you, brother. And that light is shining big time.
Big
You know,
time.
big time. You know what I mean? That light is shining in you, man.
Thank you.
What can I say? What can I say? I can't say no more, man. It's like, I mean, if I didn't, and the people, and I missed like 3/4 of the show, but what I did get, you know, if the people don't get it now, if the people didn't get it then, they get it now. Believe me, this is a serious thing, man. And I just want to thank you. And believe me, I was back and forth. What happened is, let me give you a little brief, you guys. I do the show here in Manhattan, New York, in the Hilton Hotel. And when our doors are closed and I'm watching the whole building, and we had someone try to sneak into 41st Street entrance while I'm here minding my business, doing my job, man. Man, look, listen, let me show you my little buddy.
Big tap in the house, everybody.
We,
Oh my God,
we
you gonna show
called
us?
we called the police. But that's all right because I was waiting for my man to come down.
Okay.
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
waiting for my man to come through one of these doors right here. But what they did, they went around the building and was looking for. But these dudes in New York, man, they know I've been here 20 years, Jaime. I got a fire life safety director here in the building. And these perks know these buildings better than I do. They living in here. And how they're getting in through, you know, the doors is they compromised the door. I don't know, man. But now they got the SWAT here and they got all kind of dogs coming in to sniff this guy out. So this guy better took a shower today.
Oh my God, Gerald, this is crazy.
Because if he didn't, he's getting caught, brother.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. So,
I love
and I was
Gerald.
back and forth writing the, you know, I had to write a report, Jaime, and I'm sitting there trying to hear you, but you was in the mix, brother. I mean, you ain't let up. You know, I can see you, you know, you in the flow. This is nothing new. You ain't new to this. You like Brutus to this, you know?
Yeah.
But good luck, man, and
Thank you.
everything.
Thank you.
Yep, you got it,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Very, very, very encouraging. Very, very
Thank you, sir.
inspiring, brother. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Well,
Yup.
Mr. Jaime Puerta, I just want to thank you from my heart to yours and your adoring wife and Daniel's mother. I just want to extend my heart and my love and my peace. You know, you are a rock to me as well. We've had some he's a good dude. This is a good dude. Lord, you've heard me speak of him for years
Yes.
without of just respect, Jaime. Respect, love, and dignity, and just that basic human kindness. And what you do and what you've done for me personally in my life and the individuals that I know in our lives, when we know we call on you, when we know that we know it's already done. And so I just for me, I just wanted to make sure that this would be the best experience ever for you and your family, and this would be a piece of history that we all were a part of at this time and this moment in life, but another piece that you can take with you, Jaime, and share. And we will continue to keep the word out. You are definitely the VIP here on the Poetry of Justice show.
Thank you.
Whatever you need, whenever you need,
Thank you.
however you need, you email us, you text us, and it's done. We'll make it happen because that's our promise to you, our heart and our spirits. And Lori, I would like for you to do parting if that's okay.
Yes. So again, Jaime, thank you for coming in and sharing this story and providing this level of awareness. I was clearly enlightened, as you say, Shelley C. We've got to start having these conversations,
Mhm.
and I hope when you're back from your recent trip that you'll periodically come in and update us here at the POJ show, and we can
I will.
continue to put that word out. And Godspeed to you.
Amen.
And
Thank you.
but as Big Tap said, we know you're gonna get it done.
No,
Jaime.
already. It's
It's
already
already done.
done.
We know you're gonna get it done. So
That's
that's it for us, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaime.
We appreciate
Thank
y'all
you.
coming
Thank
and
you.
hanging
Thank
out
you.
with us.
Bless you and
Give
thank
the
you, Mr.
Poetry of
Puerta.
Justice. Thank you all. You've welcomed me into your home, and you've given me the time to get my message out. And I will always be indebted to you. And I truly, truly love you all, and I appreciate you all. Rashid, stay out of trouble. All right.
I already am staying out of trouble.
Yeah, I can see he's trouble. So
Oh, no.
I'm kidding, Rashid. I'm kidding. But you guys stay safe. You already heard me, what I had to say tonight. Talk to your children, talk to your friends, and get the word out there. And if you guys know if any legislators here in LA that can help me with this cause, that would be great. If you guys know anybody that can help me with this, I would truly, truly appreciate it, because I do need somebody to put me in contact with our local legislators, not just the ones in my area, but in your areas as well. And maybe when we get this Watson law up there in January, that I come on and I can get your guys' support for that as well.
All right, we're right
Okay.
behind you.
Definitely.
We'll be here.
And thank you to all of our Zoom room participants.
And
We
Facebook
appreciate
and
it.
YouTube.
Yes.
We did it. And Jaime will
Right.
get everything over to you. We'll have everything over to you by Sunday night, Monday at the latest. We'll have all the footage for you.
It's
Thank
okay.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much.
All
All
bless.
right.
right.
Take care,
All right.
guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Well, Facebook land, thank you guys so much for rolling with me tonight. We had some technical difficulties when we first started the show, and I ended up having to do a couple of those. So I don't know, but thank you guys for hanging with me. Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Dex. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.